Hey, what's up, everybody? So coming to you today with the what's next on the undefeated WBO super middleweight champion Billy Joe Saunders. Saunders returned to action on Friday, December 4th. That was in the main event of a DAZN card from the United Kingdom. He took on veteran, former, multiple-time world title challenger Martin Murray, who in this fight was getting his fifth crack at a world title. Three of the previous four times Murray almost came up and probably should have at least one or two of those times been declared the world champion. He tried to make the fifth time a charm, but couldn't do it. Billy Joe just too good, younger, and just too solid, too good in the ring. His boxing ability just on point. A little bit of rust from Billy Joe, but he looked really good. One-sided 12-round unanimous decision, shaking off the rust, taking on a name at least who's at the end of his career, and going away with the victory. And Martin Murray, sad to see that the veteran who never, he's an uncrowned champion. Always will be an uncrowned champion. He probably should have been declared a world champion at least once, and he never got that. He never got that distinction. Sad, but big fan of Martin Murray. Congrats to him and a great career. But congrats to Billy Joe for coming back. He could have fought a nobody, which you can compare a nobody to an aging veteran who's past his prime like Martin Murray. But this kind of win in this kind of moment with COVID, some of these guys just coming back to fight once this year, taking considerable, you could call them tune-up bouts. And essentially, that's what this was, a glorified tune-up bout. And he got a solid win. So congrats to Billy Joe on the victory. He looks solid. And now moving on. So the big question is, what's next for Billy Joe Saunders, the undefeated WBO super middleweight champion? Excuse me. Well, the biggest name that people are throwing around right now is Daniel Jacobs. I think that's the most logical choice. Jacobs is number 3 in the WBO. Now, I think the WBO is becoming more corrupt than corrupt too, so all of them pretty much are. But I wouldn't be surprised if Canelo goes on to beat Callum Smith and captures the WBC title and the WBA super title. Canelo, who's currently ranked number 1 in the WBO, probably moves on. They probably take him out of the rankings, and I wouldn't be surprised if they bump number 3, Daniel Jacobs, up to the top spot. They really haven't made Zach Parker, who's number 2, undefeated, also from the United Kingdom. They really haven't made him go out and become the official mandatory. So that's what I think the WBO is likely going to do to get a big fight to happen next. And I think both these guys should take each other on. I think Jacobs and Billy Joe makes a lot of sense. I don't believe, unless, of course, Billy Joe becomes attractive to Canelo for his next fight. That's the big question. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen. Canelo's fighting the undefeated, little-known British, super middleweight Callum Smith next. I don't think he's going to dip into that well 2 times in a row. I think he'll fight somebody else. Maybe try to get the Charlo to come up, maybe sign a short contract with the PBC and try to get Caleb Plant. But I don't believe he's going to go the road of Callum Smith, of Billy Joe Saunders next. So I think Saunders and Daniel Jacobs makes the most sense. Now let's look at some of the other options, though. How about number two super middleweight Callum Smith? Well, depends on how Callum Smith looks against Canelo. If Callum Smith, which I think he's going to lose the fight, but if he goes and gets his ass whipped and knocked out, I don't think Billy Joe's going to give him the time of day because of the size difference. Callum Smith is bigger, longer. It was already an awkward type of opponent to face for Billy Joe. If he looks good against Canelo but comes up short by a close decision, it becomes a more viable option because it's an all-British clash. So I think that would make it interesting, but I don't think Billy Joe would take it. Now, if Callum Smith were to whip Canelo's ass, or let me go back. If Callum Smith were to barely beat Billy Joe, beat Canelo, they're probably going to see a Canelo-Callum rematch. So that would be off the table. And then if Callum Smith were to dominate Billy Joe Saunders, Canelo, and the rematch probably wasn't looking likely between the two, then that's the only time that I think Callum Smith would probably and Billy Joe would probably be interested in each other. But I really don't see that scenario happening. I think Callum Smith knocking out Canelo, of the 4 scenarios there, knockout or decision on both sides, I think that's the least likely. So, or dominating him over 12 rounds, or where Canelo doesn't want a rematch. I don't see that happening either. So, I don't see Callum Smith and Billy Joe being possible, but you never know. It depends on what happens in that fight with Canelo and Callum Smith on December 19th. Again, Daniel Jacobs at number 3, in my opinion, the most logical choice. I think that's a big fight for both guys. Billy Joe beats Daniel Jacobs, then he can get the Canelo fight and, and be right there in line, and that would make a lot of sense for him. So I think, yeah. Let me see. Number 4, undefeated former world champion, David Benavidez. I don't see it. I think Benavidez is a PBC guy, and I think he's going to fight PBC next. I don't think him and Billy Joe are really talking interest. He doesn't bring a title to the table. He's a threat. I don't see Billy Joe going for it. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Caleb Plant. It's a good matchup between 2 good boxers, but and undefeated champions, but I just don't see the PBC and Matchroom coming together for it, so I'm going to say no. Number 7, Anthony Dirrell, the former 2-time champion. I think Dirrell's, if he fights at all, he's going to try to get back in line for the world title, the WBC title, or take on another PBC guy or tune-up bouts. I don't think he has any interest in fighting Billy Joe. Number 8 is Lionel Thompson. Don't see Billy Joe having any interest here. Thompson's a PBC guy anyway, so I'm not seeing it. Number 9 would be a rematch with what's his name? John Ryder. I'm not seeing that one. And John Ryder's going for the WBA regular belt next. So maybe, but I'm going to lean towards the no. It's possible, though, if Billy Joe really wants to unify and get that distinction, and John Ryder has become somewhat of a name, so maybe that happens. And then finally at number 10 is Caleb Truax, the veteran. I don't see Billy Joe entertaining this. He's a PBC guy anyway. So realistically, top 10, I think Daniel Jacobs is the best option, but we'll see. So that's Billy Joe. That's the what's next. Also, an outside one of a guy moving up in weight, Demetrius Andrade. That's a good one right there. So undefeated middleweight champion. That might be very possible. I think that's maybe his second likely option next to Danny Jacobs. I think he should lean towards the Jacobs fight, but if Andrade's there, why not? Let's get it on. So that's it. That's what's next on undefeated WBO super middleweight champion Billy Joe Saunders and what he could be doing next. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.